All right, let's take a look at the very popular Jefferson Curl. So the Jefferson Curl is a loaded hamstring stretch, and I personally consider it to be one of the very best hamstring stretches that you can do, especially as a beginner to loaded stretching. First of all, because it's a loaded stretch, the added weight is going to help facilitate guiding us deeper into the stretch and unlocking new ranges of motion. But on top of that, it's also going to help us develop more strength and conditioning in those new ranges so that we can ultimately express more strength through length. And the advantage that this hamstring stretch has over any traditional hip hinging movement is that it actually gets us segmenting our spine into flexion so that we can take our entire posterior chain from head to feet through its most length and end range. So not only are we going to be stretching our hamstrings, but we're actually going to be offering a good stretch for our low back, our spine, and our shoulder blades. So to set this exercise up, we're ideally going to want to have a sturdy, stable elevation that we can stand on so that we have the space to reach beyond our feet without the floor limiting our range. But having said that, if you don't have access to an elevation that is stable enough to work off of, there is a way to work around that, which I'll go over in more detail when I talk about the different loading methods. But before I get into that, I just want to go over the execution of the movement and give you a blueprint to work with so that you can nail the exercise with good form. So first things first, in our starting position, we want to actively flex the quads and lock out the knees so that our legs remain straight throughout the entire movement. Then starting from a nice upright position, we're going to think about segmenting our spine into flexion, one vertebrae at a time. So we're going to start by tucking the chin and rolling our head forwards, then rolling our shoulders forwards and actively spreading the shoulder blades apart as we move through the upper back. From there, we're just continuing to round our spine into flexion 1 inch at a time and reaching down as far as we possibly can while maintaining straight legs with locked knees. Once we've hit our end range, we're going to hold the stretch for 3 to 5 seconds and then return back up in the reverse procedure, segmenting back up to the top position, one vertebrae at a time.
And a quick pro tip is that we want to be actively applying our compression strength as we're holding the stretch in our end range.
So instead of just relaxing at the bottom and letting the weight pull you down, we want to actively be flexing the quads to keep the legs straight and support the knee joint. And we also want to be using our hips and core to squeeze our body together and actively reach the weight as far away from us as possible. So the two most common mistakes I see people make are 1, treating it like a hip hinge and either keeping the back extended on the way down or extending prematurely on the way back up. And 2, allowing the knees to go soft. If we allow our knee to have a soft bend in it, what we're doing is then creating slack in the muscles, tendons, ligaments, and nerves that run behind our knee, which means we are reducing the line of tension there and therefore cheating the stretch, which means that we're missing out on quality hamstring flexibility gains, and that's not what we want. And one bonus tip for beginners is that if you're really struggling to segment your spine into flexion, you might find it really helpful to practice this movement up against a wall. This way you can get some actual tactile feedback from the wall to help you feel each vertebrae of your spine segmenting off the wall and into flexion. You want to visualize yourself as a sticker being peeled off the wall from top down. So the last thing to go over with this exercise is the different loading methods and how to apply progressive overload. First of all, it's worth mentioning that if you are really uncomfortable with loading this stretch, it can be done with just body weight only. Although having said that, I do strongly encourage you to use at least a little bit of weight, even if it's really, really light. First of all, it's a lot safer than it looks, as long as you're starting with a reasonable amount of weight appropriate to your current level of ability. If it starts to get too intense, all you have to do is drop the weight. Aside from it being safe, the added weight is actually going to help give you more tactile feedback so you can really feel your spine articulating into flexion and make sure that you're maintaining good form. Plus, as I mentioned before, the added weight is also going to help facilitate guiding you deeper into the position so that you can get a lot more out of this exercise. Now, when it comes to loading the movement, you can use just about any form of weight. Dumbbells, kettlebells, plates, and barbells all work very well. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, there is one loading method that eliminates the need for an elevated support and allows us to work from the floor, and that is the Zercher loading method. Zercher loading is where we hug a barbell in the crooks of our elbows. The main benefit of this approach is that you can work from the floor without your range being limited. But another bonus is that it keeps the weight loaded closer to your trunk so that you can get even better feedback on your spinal flexion. Now, when it comes to progressively overloading this exercise, obviously we're gonna want to start light and gradually build up the weight over time. And my advice is don't rush into the heavier weight loads too fast. It's very important that we build a strong foundation that will carry us into those more advanced weight loads. Remember, it's not a race. I want you absolutely dominating the weight load that you're currently using before you start adding more weight. And just like any other exercise, you can also progressively overload by adding more reps or time under tension. It doesn't always have to be just adding more weight to the exercise. But just to give you a general sense of direction, the target I get most of the athletes I'm coaching to work towards is taking 50% of your body weight down to wrist to toe range with locked knees for 5 total reps. If you can do that, I would consider you to be at a high level of posterior chain strength and flexibility. So that is the Jefferson Curl. I hope this video serves you well. Don't forget to subscribe for more flexibility content just like this.